In less than 4 hours, Donald J. Trump will become the 47th president of the United States. CNBC is live on Capitol Hill for special coverage of the inauguration. Our focus today will be the business impact of President Trump's second term in the White House as we speak with corporate leaders, Washington insiders, and policymakers. CNBC's special coverage of the inauguration begins right now. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to CNBC's special coverage of the inauguration of Donald J. Trump. I'm Becky Quick, live from Washington, D.C. Over the next several hours, we will show you the transition of power from President Biden to President Trump. We have a huge lineup of guests joining us today, including the CEO of Pfizer, legendary investor Stan Druckenmiller, Carlyle's David Rubenstein, and Elon Musk's biographer Walter Isaacson. We're going to look at this from every angle, what it means for you and your money. CNBC's reporters will bring you in-depth coverage of these policies of the incoming administration that matter most for your money. Steve Leisman and Robert Frank are going to be joining us later from CNBC's headquarters, but right now, Emily Wilkins and Megan Casella are posted around the Capitol today. Steve Kovac is live at CNBC headquarters, and Eamon Javers is right here with us on set. And Eamon, we want to start with you on what is the coldest inauguration day in 40 years.
Good morning, Becky. Welcome to Washington. It's so great to have you here. It is a fascinating day today. It is bitterly cold out there, so they've moved everything inside. All of the pageantry and pomp and circumstance that we expected from today will all take place in a little bit of a more confined space inside the Capitol Rotunda. We're going to see history, we're going to see celebration, and we're also going to see substance today, Becky. Unlike a lot of inauguration days, we're going to see some actual policy movement. And illustrating the tension, I think, of this particular inauguration and transition of power from Biden to Trump is the fact that Joe Biden, just within the past hour, has issued preemptive pardons to a number of people who were involved in his administration in various ways. Take a look at this list of who the president, who is outgoing in just a couple of hours, has issued pardons to: General Mark Milley, Dr. Anthony Fauci, members of Congress and staff who served on the January 6th committee, U.S. Capitol and D.C. Metropolitan Police officers who testified before the January 6th committee. All of those have been issued pardons by the outgoing president this morning for presumably any conduct that they may have engaged in during their service to the country. Biden issuing a statement just a short time ago saying that none of that should be taken to indicate that these people committed any wrongdoing or were guilty of anything at all, simply saying that these are preemptive pardons in order to clear the deck so that those people don't have to worry about retaliation from the incoming Trump team. So as we watch the pageantry, the parades, the celebration today, there is substance on the line, and there is an underlying tension here between the transition from Joe Biden to Donald Trump.
Late yesterday afternoon, Donald Trump, at the rally that he held at the Capital One Arena here, was talking about how he plans on day one today to go ahead and pardon most of the January 6th. At least he hinted at that very heavily. He said he thought it would be something that most of the people, 99.9% of the people in that arena, would agree with. I think he called them January 6th hostages as he was going through with this. But you're right, there has been a lot of acrimony back and forth and thoughts of what comes next. I think when he was laying it out to NBC's Kristen Welker just a few days ago, Donald Trump, he said that he's going to be looking at messages of unity, strength, and also fairness. And that fairness comes with, I think, some retribution for what he sees as very unfair treatment over the last 4 years.
Yeah, and as you watch that tension, we're going to see Donald Trump and Joe Biden together several times during the course of the day at the White House, and then in the motorcade on the way over to the Capitol for the swearing in. So you can imagine what it'd be like to be a fly on the wall for those behind-the-scenes moments between the two men as they're issuing these dueling sets of pardons that we expect to see today. And you look at all of the tension between those two sides, and you do think that as President Trump considers how he's going to handle the January 6th pardons, he's got a couple of buckets to look at, right? One is people who've already been prosecuted, served their time, or weren't sentenced to any time. Those people can be pardoned relatively relatively easily, doesn't affect their lives other than clearing their record, then there's another bucket of people who will be more controversial, people who are convicted of crimes, including assault, physical assault on police officers. We'll see how far Donald Trump decides to go today. We do expect to see those pardons later in the morning, or later in the afternoon, I should say, after he's sworn in, and we'll see how much emphasis he puts on those January 6th pardons. But we're seeing this fascinating set now of dueling pardons by the outgoing and incoming administrations, and I think that just underscores the tension and drama in all of this. And I think what we should say, though, is that even as you have that tension, we are seeing here a peaceful transfer of power.
Yeah, and you will see past presidents who are here, and by the way, they've all been in close proximity recently for the funeral of former President Jimmy Carter. And you also saw actually some pretty genial time between the current President Biden and incoming President Trump right after the election day when he welcomed him to the White House, too.
And amazing moments at that funeral of Barack Obama sitting next to Donald Trump, laughing and joking in conversation. And we'll be watching all that body language today. So fascinating to see these presidents interact with one another. George W. Bush, who famously called Donald Trump's first inaugural address weird with an expletive.
Weird excrement, right. Is what he called it.
We'll see whether he renders a judgment this time around as well. And then, of course, all the CEOs who are going to be there. Elon Musk and the tech CEOs. So much body language to watch. We've never seen anything like this. Never
seen this many business leaders here, and that's why it makes it such an important story for us as well. We're going to talk about all of these issues as we go through the morning. Eamon, stick around. Right now, we want to go over to Emily Wilkins. She's standing by at the Russell Rotunda. Emily, good morning.
Good morning, Becky. Well, yeah, today is going to be a very historic day, obviously with the inaugural, but also the fact that the inaugural is being held inside. I mean, Capitol staffers, they worked for months to erect outside the bleachers an entire ceremony that was going to fit about 1,600 people. Now that all has to be moved inside into the rotunda. I mean, it's a beautiful space to be holding any sort of ceremony like this, but it fits significantly less people. We're thinking of somewhere between 600 to 700 folks are going to be squeezed in there, which means that folks will be getting cut from the guest list. But of course, this was a decision made by Trump to make sure that they are avoiding some of the cold temperatures that D.C. is experiencing today. You also are going to see about another 2,000 folks go into the Capitol into Emancipation Hall. That's a bit of a wider space. They won't be in the room for when Trump is inaugurated, but what they will get to see is everything going on live, and then Trump is expected to go and address that group before heading off to the Capital One Arena. We'll be keeping a close eye on what lawmakers made the cutoff for being inside the room where it happens today in the rotunda. Certainly, we're expecting to see Speaker Mike Johnson as well as Senate Majority Leader John Thune there. Both of them have really bonded with Trump over the last couple of weeks since the election. You saw them go to UFC fights. You saw them take planes. You saw them show up with football games. And it really shows that this time around, Trump has a much warmer relationship with Congress. He's got a Congress that really wants to back him and support him. A lot of lawmakers that have come in since his first term, they're sort of more aligned with the MAGA movement, if you will, and with Trump's sort of outlook on how things need to be done. That's not to say, though, that everything is going to be smooth sailing. We saw this just in December when it came to the government shutdown and Trump backing a bill that 38 Republicans then turned around and voted against because of their concerns over the debt limit. So one thing to keep an eye on really for over the next 2 years is going to be those fiscal hawks, both in the House and in the Senate. They could really, just a few of them, could stymie some of Trump's major legislation. And because of the process that they're doing this special process that allows them to move forward with just 50 votes in the Senate, it does mean that they're going to have to kind of say up front, hey, this is the amount that we want to spend, and here's what the pay-fors are going to be. So that could set up some very difficult votes. And we'll have to see if, like for Speaker Mike Johnson's getting elected speaker, if Trump needs to come in at the final hour and really put the pressure on some lawmakers to go along with the plans. Stephen Miller also briefed a number of top Republicans yesterday on what the White House is expecting to do today and in the first couple days in terms of executive orders. And I've had lawmakers told me that they're looking at those executive orders closely. You know, executive orders, they don't have a ton of power. Congress wants to find a way to put those into law. Becky?
All right, Emily, thank you very much. We will check back in with you in just a little bit. Right now, we want to get over to Megan Casella. She is actually braving the cold this morning, overlooking the Capitol building. Megan, good morning.
Becky, good morning. It is not so bad up here, if you would believe it. A beautiful view up here as we get ready. But I wanted to get into some of the substance that we're expecting today. Emily just mentioned that Stephen Miller briefed some Republican lawmakers late last night. He's a top policy advisor to Donald Trump, and he started talking about the executive orders that we're expecting today. And we're expecting these to come in three main buckets. It's energy, it's immigration and the border, and it's government reform or DOGE. So running through these just a little bit, on the energy front, we are expecting Donald Trump today to sign some orders canceling the EV mandate, ending some electric vehicle tax credits that were put in place under the Biden administration. He, of course, has talked for several months now about drilling for more oil. He wants to streamline the permitting process, and he'll declare a national energy emergency. All of this, he says, will create jobs, lower prices for American consumers, help the stock market in the meantime, and make us less dependent on some adversaries who we depend on now for some oil. On the immigration front, this is expected to be a huge bucket today. Trump, of course, has talked about mass deportations. We think there could be some mass raids today and throughout the week, potentially starting tomorrow in cities across the country. He's talking about ending birthright citizenship that is, of course, established under the 14th Amendment, but Trump's policy advisors are looking at ways to try to challenge that, potentially inviting some legal challenges, but deciding that that could be the best way forward to try to end birthright citizenship. And he also wants to end Biden-era border policies, send more troops to the border, and all of that. And then finally, we're expecting some movement on the government reform side. One order potentially just establishing DOGE, that Department of Government Efficiency, and making it legitimate, at least as legitimate as an executive order could do. They're also talking about ending telework for federal employees, rescinding some diversity initiatives. So all of that, Becky, we do expect to get more information later today and more details. But I do want to flag just one thing that I didn't mention, and that's trade, because we haven't heard any specifics yet from the Trump team about what exactly is coming today on that front. That could change over the next several hours. We have questions out to these folks, but right now we know there are some divisions still within the Trump team on the trade and tariffs front. So while they're likely to do something, we just don't know yet what exactly that will be. Becky?
Megan, thank you. We will see you in just a little bit. Right now, we want to get over to Steve Kovac. He's covering the big tech angle from CNBC headquarters. And Steve, we've really never seen anything like this in terms of tech leaders being represented at an inauguration like this.
Yeah, that's right, Becky. And it all plays into that activity we saw over the weekend with the TikTok ban and its removal and return to service over the weekend. So let me tell you where things stand now. The service came back online yesterday after Trump posted on Truth Social he would not enforce the ban and work to facilitate a sale of the company. In the meantime, Apple and Google, they're still keeping ByteDance apps out of their app stores in order to comply with the law that went into effect yesterday. Unclear, though, if they're going to bring the apps back to the stores based on just a social media post from the president-elect. And while President Trump encouraged Apple and Google to bring the apps back, Senators Tom Cotton and Pete Ricketts with the statement yesterday saying the exact opposite, encouraging Apple and Google not to back down until ByteDance is sold, and warned violating the law risks heavy fines and bankruptcy. But two tech companies appear to be ignoring that. That's Oracle and Akamai, which provide cloud services to keep TikTok running here in the United States. Last night at a rally, Trump floated the idea that the United States could acquire half of TikTok and then facilitate a sale. We're expecting more clarity on this as soon as today from an executive order. And of course, all of this is happening, Becky, as tech billionaires and other Silicon Valley elite attend Trump's inauguration today with agendas of their own. Let's call them the MAGA 7. Many of them represent the magnificent 7 companies we talk about so much. So here's who we're going to see and what's at stake for each in this new Trump administration. There's Tim Cook, of course, the Apple CEO. They need to avoid China tariffs. And at yesterday's Trump rally, he said he spoke with Tim Cook and promised Apple would make a big investment in the United States. No comment from Apple on that. Sundar Pichai, the Alphabet CEO, lost the DOJ search antitrust case last year and now working remedies through the courts, which could include breaking up the company. And then there's Jeff Bezos, former Amazon CEO. He needs support for his space company, Blue Origin, which competes with Elon Musk's SpaceX. And finally, the two have embraced Trump more than the others. Mark Zuckerberg, the Meta CEO, recently he eliminated DEI policies at his company, told Joe Rogan that Meta needs that more masculine energy, and ended fact-checking programs and removed safeguards that slowed down the flow of misinformation across Meta's platforms. Also, he'll be hosting a reception tonight with GOP mega donors Miriam Adelson and Todd Ricketts and Rocket's owner Tillman Fertitta. Meta's also facing its own antitrust charges from the United States, and Zuckerberg appears to want Trump's help pressuring the European Union over strict tech laws forcing Meta to more strictly moderate content on its platforms. As for Elon Musk, I don't need to tell you much over here. So he spent over $270 million to get Trump reelected. He will run that Doge with Vivek Ramaswamy, though there are some rumors that Vivek may be out of that group. He will be in charge of cutting costs at the same agencies that regulate his companies, from the FAA for SpaceX to NHTSA for Tesla. And now there are two Mag 7 exceptions, though, not appearing today. NVIDIA CEO Jensen Huang, NVIDIA tells us he's in China today on a business trip. And then questions around Microsoft CEO Satya Nadella. Microsoft won't say if he'll be there. We're expecting to see him in Davos as soon as tomorrow. But he did meet with Trump at Mar-a-Lago a few days ago. And like the others, Microsoft donated $1 million to the inauguration fund. Becky.
All right, Steve, thank you. We've got lots to talk about with you today, and we will continue to watch this. We're also awaiting many of the pictures that we've been we're here for today with the inauguration, with the pomp and circumstance.